Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the glamorous, scandalous, and ever-thrilling world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a magnificent day to explore the latest heart-stopping drama unfolding on your screens. So let us unravel the tangled webs of ambition, betrayal, and devastating consequences together. The landscape of Los Angeles fashion is a brutal, unrelenting battlefield, and the current corporate war between the established titans at Forrester Creations and the newly ascended Logan brand has reached a fever pitch of unprecedented, catastrophic proportions. At the absolute center of this swirling vortex of corporate espionage and familial warfare stands Katie Logan Spencer. For decades, Katie was perceived as the moral compass of her family, the quiet achiever, the sensible Logan sister who frequently sacrificed her own desires and ambitions for the sake of maintaining a fragile family harmony. However, the recent, explosive launch of her namesake fashion collection, orchestrated with the ruthless, calculating brilliance of Bill Spencer, has completely shattered that old paradigm. Katie is no longer the quiet sister standing in the shadows. She is a titan of industry, a woman whose name is currently plastered across glowing, towering billboards in every major city on the globe. But this meteoric rise to the very pinnacle of the fashion world has not come without a devastating, hidden cost, one that now threatens to destroy absolutely everything she has built. The immense, crushing pressure of running a rapidly rising fashion empire is an isolating and terrifying experience, even for the most seasoned and hardened executive. Katie is not merely launching a boutique. She's actively engaging in a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar game of intellectual property theft, utilizing the highly coveted, unreleased designs of Eric Forrester to build her empire. Every single day is a precarious tightrope walk over a bottomless chasm of potential ruin. The media scrutiny is relentless and unforgiving. The financial stakes are astronomically high, and the constant, looming threat of a massive, brand-destroying lawsuit from Forrester Creations hangs over her head like a sharpened guillotine. Katie has thrown herself into this venture with a manic, desperate energy, determined to prove to the world, to her dismissive family, and to herself that she is a formidable, unstoppable force. She is working impossible, grueling hours, fueled entirely by adrenaline, blind ambition, and a deeply ingrained psychological need to validate her newfound power. Compounding this crushing professional pressure is the deeply personal, emotionally agonizing war she is currently waging against her own sister, Brooke Logan Forrester. The historical dynamic between the Logan sisters has always been incredibly complex, fraught with lingering jealousy, romantic betrayal, and constantly shifting allegiances. But the current conflict is entirely different. It is toxic, venomous, and fundamentally destructive to their souls. Brooke, fiercely loyal to Forrester Creations, and currently plotting her own ruthless, hostile takeover of Steffi Forrester Finnegan's co-CEO seat at the behest of a radicalized Hope, views Katie's use of Eric's designs as an unforgivable, mortal betrayal. The arguments between the two sisters have escalated rapidly from tense, polite disagreements to vicious, screaming matches that shake the very foundations of their familial bond. Brooke has hurled devastating accusations of theft and moral bankruptcy, while Katie has fiercely, stubbornly defended her right to claim what she believes she is rightfully owed. It is within this boiling crucible of unrelenting, inescapable stress that Katie's physical health begins to silently, terrifyingly deteriorate. The human body can only endure so much psychological warfare and sleep deprivation before it begins to violently break down, and Katie's medical history is notoriously, tragically fragile. Longtime viewers of the show will vividly remember the agonizing saga of Katie's heart transplant, the ultimate, heartbreaking sacrifice made by her brother, Storm Logan, who tragically gave his own life so that his sister could continue to live. That heart, a profound symbol of enduring tragedy and boundless familial love, is now under severe, relentless siege. Katie begins to experience the sinister, all too familiar symptoms of cardiac distress. The sudden, sharp, radiating chest pains that steal her breath, the terrifying shortness of breath after climbing a single flight of stairs, and the cold, clammy sweats that jolt her awake in the dead of night. These are not merely signs of executive exhaustion. They're the desperate, screaming warning signals of a body pushed to the absolute, catastrophic brink of failure. Yet, in a display of tragic, stubborn pride that defines her current persona, Katie makes the fateful, incredibly dangerous decision to hide her deteriorating medical condition from absolutely everyone around her. She becomes a master of daily deception, masking her sudden grimaces of agonizing pain behind perfectly applied layers of expensive makeup and a carefully constructed facade of unwavering, icy confidence. Why does she choose this perilous silence? Because in the brutal, cutthroat world of high fashion, and especially in the middle of a vicious war with the Forrester dynasty, any display of physical weakness is akin to bleeding in shark-infested waters. Katie is utterly terrified that if she reveals her vulnerability, her detractors will instantly pounce. She possesses a deep-seated fear that Brooke and Ridge will weaponize her illness, using it as definitive proof that she is medically and mentally unfit to run the Logan brand. She believes they will leverage her mortality to strip her of the unprecedented success she has fought so desperately to achieve, and she absolutely refuses to give Brooke the profound satisfaction of seeing her falter. This internal conflict is a harrowing masterclass in psychological torment and self-destruction. Katie is trapped inside a suffocating prison of her own making, caught violently between the primal human instinct for self-preservation and the blinding, intoxicating allure of corporate ambition. Every single time a sharp, stabbing pain radiates down her left arm, she forces herself to stand taller, to speak louder, to project an aura of absolute invincibility that is completely, tragically at odds with the fragile reality of her failing, transplanted heart. She aggressively pushes away the genuine concerns of her sister Donna Logan, who watches the family violently fracturing with weeping, helpless terror. Katie isolates herself completely within her ambition, desperately convincing herself that she just needs to get through the next massive launch, the next grueling press conference, the next venomous confrontation with Brooke, and then, finally, she can allow herself to rest. But the biological debt she is rapidly accruing with her own body is one that eventually demands to be paid in full, with exorbitant interest. The terrifying climax of this harrowing, suspenseful storyline arrives on the night of the highly anticipated, star-studded launch gala for the newest Logan boutique. This extravagant event is meticulously designed to be Katie's absolute crowning achievement, a glittering, opulent spectacle meant to permanently cement her status as a global fashion mogul and to publicly rub her undeniable success in the faces of the Forrester family. The luxurious venue is bathed in blinding, strobing lights. The velvet red carpet is packed shoulder to shoulder with screaming photographers and hungry journalists, and the atmosphere in the room is electric with palpable, dangerous anticipation. Bill Spencer, the ruthless architect of this aggressive expansion, stands proudly by her side, radiating a triumphant, predatory pride. He has relentlessly pushed Katie to embrace her inner predator, and tonight is the ultimate, undeniable validation of their shared, cutthroat vision. But as Katie prepares to take the grand stage, the hidden, agonizing pain she has been suppressing finally reaches a catastrophic, unavoidable tipping point. The scene is painted with rich, terrifying, slow-motion imagery that will burn itself into the memories of the audience. As Katie steps up to the illuminated podium, the deafening roar of the excited crowd and the blinding, relentless flashes of the cameras create a disorienting, overwhelming sensory assault. The sleek microphone feels impossibly heavy in her trembling, cold hands. She looks out at the vast sea of faces, her vision blurring as she perhaps spots the hostile, judgmental glares of Brooke and Ridge standing in the back of the crowd, and she attempts to deliver her triumphant, carefully rehearsed speech. But the words catch violently in her throat as a massive, crushing weight, like a physical anvil, descends upon her chest. The pain is no longer a gentle warning. It is an absolute, undeniable, agonizing reality. The audience watches in mounting, breathless horror as the confident, radiant Zoe suddenly falters mid-sentence. The vibrant color drains completely from her face, leaving her ashen. Her eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated panic, and she clutches desperately at her chest, her manicured fingers digging into the expensive, custom fabric of her designer gown. Time seems to slow to an agonizing, terrifying crawl as Katie Logan Spencer collapses. It is not a graceful, cinematic swoon. It is a terrifying, sudden, dead-weight drop, the catastrophic physical failure of a heart that can simply no longer bear the immense, crushing burden placed upon it. She hits the polished stage floor with a sickening, heavy thud, the microphone slipping from her grasp and emitting a loud, piercing screech of audio feedback that echoes violently through the suddenly stunned, deathly silence of the gala. The immediate aftermath is a scene of absolute, unmitigated chaos and primal terror. The glamorous, carefully curated facade of the high society fashion event is instantly, violently shattered, replaced by the raw, visceral panic of a life-or-death medical emergency playing out in front of hundreds of people. Security guards rush the stage, guests scream in genuine horror, and the flashing cameras, previously capturing her triumph, now mercilessly and invasively document her devastating fall, creating an instant, unavoidable media earthquake that will rock the foundations of Los Angeles to its very core. In the absolute center of this swirling, nightmarish chaos is Bill Spencer, a man who is entirely accustomed to dominating and controlling every single aspect of his environment. When Katie collapses, the ruthless, calculating, untouchable billionaire persona is instantly vaporized, replaced entirely by a terrified, desperate, broken partner. Bill drops violently to his knees beside her motionless, fragile body, his usually steady hands shaking uncontrollably as he screams at the top of his lungs for a doctor. The horrifying realization of what has just happened hits him with the devastating force of a runaway freight train. He was the one who relentlessly pushed her into this corporate war. He was the one who encouraged her to steal the designs, to brazenly defy the foresters, to fully embrace the cutthroat, stressful tactics that have brought them directly to this exact, horrifying moment. The guilt that washes over Bill is absolute, suffocating, and all-consuming. He is a man who casually plays high-stakes games with money, companies, and power, but he never, in his darkest nightmares, intended to gamble with the actual life of the woman he loves. Bill's internal monologue is a chaotic, agonizing storm of self-recrimination and sheer, blinding panic. He looks down at Katie's pale, lifeless face, her lips turning a terrifying shade of blue, and he sees the direct, undeniable consequence of his own relentless, toxic ambition. He manipulated her deep-seated desire to finally step out of Brooke's shadow, weaponizing her lifelong insecurities to build his own fashion empire and feed his own ego. As the paramedics arrive on the scene and frantically begin to work on Katie, tearing open her beautiful gown to attach the cold defibrillator pads to her chest, Bill is forced to confront the monstrous, destructive nature of his own actions. He realizes, with a sickening, gut-wrenching clarity, that in his desperate, obsessive quest to win the corporate war against Ridge Forrester, he may have fundamentally destroyed the only prize in the world that actually mattered to him. His vast wealth, his immense power, his global billboards. None of it means a single thing if Katie's heart, the very heart that Storm Logan died to give her, stops beating permanently on this stage. Meanwhile, the reaction of Brooke and Ridge Forrester, watching the horror unfold from the crowd, adds a layer of profound, chilling, and deeply uncomfortable complexity to the unfolding tragedy. For weeks, Brooke has been entirely consumed by a righteous, burning, almost obsessive fury. She has viewed her sister Katie not as family, but as a traitor, an enemy combatant who has brazenly stolen from the sacred Forrester legacy. Brooke has been actively, relentlessly plotting to destroy Katie's brand, fueled by the radicalized, vengeful urging of her daughter, Hope. But as she witnesses her younger sister collapse in a terrifying, lifeless heap, the petty corporate warfare is suddenly, violently stripped away, exposing the raw, fragile nature of human life. The burning anger evaporates instantly, replaced by a cold, paralyzing, breath-stealing shock. Brooke is forced to stare directly at the horrifying reality of what this bitter feud has wrought. As her relentless pressure, her stubborn refusal to offer genuine support, her constant, venomous, stress-inducing attacks directly contributed to this catastrophic medical event. The moral dilemma now facing Brooke and Ridge is incredibly stark and deeply, agonizingly uncomfortable. Will they finally stop their relentless, aggressive attacks now that Katie is hovering precariously on the precipice of death? Basic human decency and familial love dictate that they should immediately lay down their arms, that the survival of a family member should completely supersede any business dispute or stolen sketch. However, the cutthroat world of Los Angeles fashion is rarely so simple or forgiving. Ridge, who has been fiercely, aggressively protective of his father Eric's legacy, must grapple with the incredibly difficult fact that the woman who stole from his family is now fighting for her last breath. Can he separate the corporate thief from the beloved aunt of his children? Or will the ruthless, calculating executive within him see this tragic, devastating collapse as the ultimate, golden opportunity to reclaim the stolen designs and permanently crush the Logan brand once and for all, while its leader is incapacitated and vulnerable? For Brooke, the internal psychological conflict is even more devastating and profound. She has spent the vast majority of her life fiercely protecting her younger sisters, acting as the matriarchal figure, yet she has spent the last month actively, viciously trying to tear Katie down from her pedestal. If Katie does not survive this massive cardiac event, Brooke will have to live the rest of her life with the unbearable, suffocating guilt that their very last interactions were filled with pure hatred, screaming, and bitter recriminations. The rejected olive branch, the screaming matches over intellectual property, all of it seems incredibly petty, small, and entirely meaningless in the sterile, terrifying, fluorescent glow of the hospital waiting room. Yet, the dark ambition that Hope has recently awakened within Brooke, the burning drive to take over Steffi's seat and reclaim her own absolute power at Forrester, is a powerful, intoxicating drug. Will Brooke succumb to her darker impulses and use Katie's medical vulnerability to her advantage, arguing to the board that Katie is medically unfit to run a rival company, thereby neutralizing her biggest corporate threat? The dramatic, suffocating atmosphere in the immediate aftermath of the gala is incredibly tense. The fashion media is in an absolute, feeding frenzy, broadcasting the shocking, grainy cell phone footage of Katie's collapse on an endless, agonizing 24-hour news loop. The stock prices and financial backing of the Logan brand fluctuate wildly, reacting violently to the terrifying uncertainty of their CEO's survival. The local hospital becomes a heavily guarded fortress of unbearable tension, where the deeply fractured Logan and Forrester families are forced to occupy the same agonizing, claustrophobic space. Donna Logan weeps uncontrollably in the corner, her absolute worst, most terrifying fears realized as she watches her beloved family literally dying from the inside out, destroyed by their own ambition. The pristine, white, echoing halls of the cardiac intensive care unit become the new, grim battleground, not for corporate supremacy or fashion dominance, but for a single woman's life and the shattered, bleeding soul of a family that has tragically allowed ambition to completely eclipse their love. The narrative focus sharpens painfully on the tragic, heartbreaking irony of Storm Logan's transplanted heart. That heart was a profound gift of ultimate, selfless love, meant to give Katie a long, beautiful, peaceful life filled with joy and family. Instead, it has been subjected to the brutal, relentless, punishing stress of corporate warfare, pounded daily by the toxic adrenaline of boardroom battles, media scrutiny, and the profound heartbreak of sisterly betrayal. If that precious heart fails now, it is not just a standard medical tragedy. It is a profound, unforgivable spiritual failure on the part of absolutely everyone who pushed Katie to this agonizing breaking point. Bill, Brooke, Ridge, they all hold a massive, undeniable piece of the blame for turning a miraculous second chance at life into a high-stakes, deadly gamble that Katie was never physically equipped to win. As the frantic doctors fight desperately behind closed doors to stabilize Katie's erratic, failing heartbeat, the power dynamics of Los Angeles hang in a precarious, terrifying, razor-thin balance. Bill Spencer, pacing the sterile hospital floors like a caged, deeply wounded, and highly dangerous animal, vows quietly to completely destroy anyone who tries to take advantage of Katie's critical condition. His immense guilt has transmuted entirely into a fierce, protective, blinding rage. He will burn Forster Creations to the ground, brick by brick, if they dare to launch a lawsuit or issue a press release while Katie is on life support. But Bill's terrifying threats may ultimately ring hollow against the cold, calculating, unfeeling machinery of the global fashion industry. The corporate wolves are already circling, smelling the blood in the water, sensing the profound weakness, and the Logan brand, built entirely on a fragile foundation of stolen designs and pure, unadulterated adrenaline, is incredibly vulnerable without its visionary, fighting leader at the helm. Ultimately, the devastating, public collapse of Katie Logan Spencer is a terrifying indictment of the toxic, all-consuming, destructive nature of unchecked ambition. It poses a terrifying, unanswerable question to the characters and the audience alike. What is the true, final price of success? Is a global fashion empire, a glowing billboard in Times Square, or the bitter defeat of a familial rival truly worth the ultimate, final sacrifice of a human life? As the heart monitor beeps rhythmically and uncertainly in the quiet, sterile confines of the intensive care unit, the ultimate fate of Katie Logan remains agonizingly, painfully uncertain. The corporate wars, the stolen dress designs, the hostile takeovers, they all fade into absolute insignificance against the fragile, desperate, terrifying fight for a single, sustaining breath. The entire glamorous landscape of Los Angeles fashion has been irrevocably, permanently altered, not by a hostile corporate takeover or a stunning new spring collection, but by the terrifying, sudden, deafening